This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by Atom Audio, Isotope, Native Instruments, Lewitt, and Grace Design. You're hearing my voice right now on the Lewitt Pure Tube microphone through the Grace Design M201 Mark II mic pre mixed through Isotope, RX, Ozone, Neutron, and Nectar, all on Atom Audio monitors. Please check out our awesome sponsors using the link in the show notes below. It's a great way to help support this show, and there's some great deals waiting for you there. Now get ready to rock.
It wasn't feeling right. She was like, I want to go and stand right in front of Brady Blade was playing drums. She was like, I want to be right in front of Brady and just like, I need to feel that energy. So putting a mandolin right in front of her drum kit is a little challenging, but I was like, that's the gig. That's what we got to do. So we put a 57 on her vocal, DI'd the mando, and that's what's on the record. One take.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lij Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Look, if you're like me, then you love having cool instruments in your studio, right? No matter what style of music you make, Native Instruments gives your studio all the instruments and sounds you need, from drums, loops, and beats to the coolest synthesizers, realistic strings, guitar amps, and futuristic synth pads. I love recording and tracking real bands in my studio, but then adding awesome overdubs from Contact, Massive X, Super 8, Battery, Guitar Rig, and Hybrid Keys, for example. Use the code ROCK10 now to get 10% off, or get Complete Start for free today with a bundle of 2,000 sounds and 6 gigs of samples, all over at nativeinstruments.com. Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound kind of weak or distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding much closer to professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools, and the best part is that these mixing techniques work for you in any DAW, whether you're on Logic, Cubase, Studio One, Reaper, anything you can think of. If you're ready now to make your best record ever, then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Howdy, rock stars. It's your host, Lij Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Jordan Hamlin, a multi-instrumentalist, composer, engineer, and music producer based in Nashville, Tennessee, a lifelong advocate for creatives. She is the owner and founder of a 20-acre residential recording studio and retreat space called MOXE. In the studio, she's produced and or engineered albums or new musical works for the Grammy-winning duo Indigo Girls and KT Tunstall, Tenille Townes, Allison Russell, Wainwright Roche, Sasha Sloan, Lila Blue, Rufus Wainwright, Adia Victoria, and many, many others. As a touring and session musician, her contributions on stage and in the studio have included collaborations with Brandi Carlile, Missy Higgins, Amy Ray, Ruby Amanfu, Loudon Wainwright III, Katie Herzig, Dar Williams, the Secret Sisters, and the Nashville Ballet, right on. And actually, as we were doing a little studio tour, we remembered that you had already been here because you played and sang, I think.
Rockin' on the Toy Box years ago.
The Robbie Hecht video. We did one of the very first ones we did for the stereo session.
Yeah, it was like Angel Snow and Robbie Hecht.
Yeah,
that was angelic voices.
Awesome. Good memory. So Rockstars, please check out the discography playlist for Jordan in the show notes. She's making some amazing sounding records with exceptional singers, and you're going to love it. And also a big shout out and a thank you to Cheyenne Metters for making our introduction or remaking it. And then also to Dave Kalmusky and Addiction Studios for reconnecting us recently. at an event where we remembered, oh shit, we got to do an interview, and we didn't do that yet.
3 years later.
Yeah.
We should do that.
So please welcome Jordan Hamlin to Recording Studio Rockstars. Jordan, are you ready to rock?
Lidge, I think I was born that way.
Were you? Yeah.
I think so.
Where were you born?
Oh, in a small town in Kentucky. In between Palma and Sharp. It's near Paducah.
So it is a small town in Kentucky.
It is a small town, and I want to say Possum Trot, but my mom gets mad when I say that. But, maybe she won't hear this.
Can you just call it Tobacco Leaf or something instead?
I mean, Possum Trot, why would you want something else?
That's true.
That's 5 minutes from my house, so I'm going to claim it.
So Possum Trot is a place right there.
It is a place. I'm really from Benton, Kentucky, but it's a far western Kentucky, 2 hours north of here.
So when I drive up through there, I always keep my eyes open and love to point out the giant castle on the hill that's like some kind of mega church. You know what I'm talking about? It's not your town, but
is it Lexington area?
Lexington, yeah.
So what's funny is that's like 4 or 5 hours away from me. Isn't that funny? Like Nashville was the big city for me.
Wow.
So we came here every Christmas. We would go to the the Opryland Hotel.
Oh, yeah, you said Paducah. Sorry, for some reason my brain thought Lexington. So
that's what most people know. I'm the other side.
Sorry, Paducah, of course, is my halfway spot between Nashville and St. Louis.
That's
where
right.
I always am like, it used to be like, oh, finally I can get good coffee at that corporate bookstore that has a coffee shop in it.
Books A Million.
Books A Million, yeah.
I played at Books A Million.
You played there?
Yeah.
You played music there?
Yes.
Really?
Sure. Adolescent Jordan did some jams in the
Did
Books
you play
A Million in Paducah.
a million notes while you were there?
Probably for a million reasons.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I always liked stopping there. I was always like, oh,
yeah,
finally,
it's a hang. It's a cool little arts town, and they did a revitalization of the downtown that has this cool theater and a cobblestone. It's a vibe.
I don't even know if I really know the downtown, but I feel like one time we pulled further off the road and found, if I'm remembering this correctly, an old Coca-Cola factory that was turned into a pizza place or something. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a Coke factory on the triangle. Yeah, and the
like
place
a
you're
big
talking about.
White brick building kind of thing.
It's awesome.
It was pretty cool. We had to wait a long time for our pizza, but it was really good when it got there.
On behalf of the greater Paducah area, I apologize for that.
That's all right. It's all right. Okay, so that's where you grew up in. Talk about your musical influence there a little bit.
And my parents, for sure, I mean, I think that's probably why I can't remember a time without music being the thing. They were always playing Janis Joplin and Are You Experienced is my mom's favorite record. Harvest, Neil Young is my dad's. But a ton of Stax and Motown stuff. They saw everybody. They saw the Supremes. They saw Sam and Dave. I loved Junior Walker and the All-Stars when I was 9.
So right at the Paducah Theater or something like that? Or did they go?
When they were kids, the Evansville, Indiana and Murray State is really near there. And a bunch of people would play there, and those reviews would come in town too. We need to get the music biz hip to that again.
Doing the review thing?
Yeah.
Do you remember 10 from Tennessee? That was
10 out of 10.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. That was our review back.
I screen printed those shirts.
In the 2000s, in the aughts.
In the aughts, that's right.
We ought to do more of that, I guess.
I was like, are we going to leave the joke on the table? And we're not.
No jokes left on the table. I mean,
I like that.
I apologize. Well, I did bring you a table, but a lot of times I'm the only one with a table in here.
Not on this day.
But I want you to have your own table for jokes on this podcast as well.
Good.
Okay, so you grew up there, and then give us the brief arc from being interested in some music there to ending up in Nashville, and how did you end up with MOXE Studios? It's a beautiful place, 20 acres.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a lot to take care of.
Yeah,
and it's amazing.
You said you were weed whacking this morning. I mean,
that's right. Before I was checking fades in the Pro Tools session.
Is it possible to actually whack 20 acres worth of weeds?
Seems like I try sometimes, but I wouldn't suggest it.
They have YouTube videos. Sometimes when I would think about taking care of my yard, I pretty much go to YouTube for everything, and I watch videos of people just it's the video is nothing but a guy driving a machine, and it's got a big blade on it, and he goes over and he just demolishes the shrubbery that's around the little pond.
Yeah, you got to do the like lay down method. Have you seen that with like a scythe where people like stomp on the long, like the tall grass, and it's a good like cover. So it'd be the opposite approach, maybe more
right, yeah,
ecological.
You mean where the lay down thing, like how you make crop circles and stuff like that?
Oh, is that how you do that? That makes sense.
You just walk around with a board and you stomp down all the stuff and flatten it.
That and aliens, yeah.
And aliens, yeah. You just think about aliens while you're doing it.
Wow. Okay, so it's
and then they attribute it to them.
I'm learning so much.
So all right, so we're still trying to get back to there. So. Did you go to recording school or do any of that kind of stuff?
So I went to Belmont, but I took recording technologies, which is like the intro audio class at Belmont. But you
got to fly in the podcast booth. So Rockstars, it's actually Jordan, me, and a fly.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall.
I think we'll be lucky if I can get any answers to questions from that fly,
though. What are we talking about?
You're talking about going to Belmont for school for recording.
That happened.
So like Belmont was kind of known as a music business place to go.
Yeah, I went to that place and did not that thing and ended up working in that thing. So I was studying French horn, and I had a French horn scholarship and doing French horn performance. And then I had an English major. And so I was studying like Southern literature and poetry. But then I wanted to get in photography, so I was doing fine art photography with like large format and medium format with like the like tent, thing. And so I felt bad for a long time for being interested in everything and feeling like I still get that a lot of like, you need to like find something and focus in on it.
Right. We're not allowed to want to do everything that's cool in life.
I guess not. And so I'm slowly letting go of like, I think part of my thing is that I love to know how to do a lot of things. And those things don't seem super disconnected to me. It seems like very similar whenever I'm playing. I grew up playing like electric guitar, like blues kind of style. And when I'm playing French horn, like, the same melodic sense might be happening, and that is really informative whenever I'm engineering to know, like, to have a lot of hours on the electric guitar and thinking about the gain staging of how hard the pickups, if the volume's really cranked, what that reaction's going to be. So, screw you guys. No, I'm joking.
No, French horn's so cool too. So French horn is the one where you're playing it, one hand does the valves and the other one's just kind of shoved right up. Yes.
I mean, I don't know if I would technically describe it like that, but it's on the like outside top of the bell.
Okay.
And actually, the more you kind of like cup in or go into the conical part of the bell, it changes the pitch, so you can stop it down a half step.
I was going to guess that it's part of the tone and the kind of like doing
it's
a plunger,
infrequently used part of it, but yeah, with the double horn, you've got two. You've got an F side horn and a B flat side horn, and you're switching between the two horns.
Really? The French horn is actually like two whole instruments in one?
Double horn, yeah.
Wow.
And you've got a trigger that switches between, so you've got a different set of fingerings for each horn, and you're, adjusting the intonation with your right hand.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It's for a certain type of person, I will say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's wild. Well, so with all the stuff you're interested in, I'll just ask the question because it popped into my head. Did you feel like there were things that you were interested in that seemed typical as a girl or as a woman being interested in them, and then other things where you were like, screw it, I don't care. I just really like this, whatever it is. Like, with building the studio, I think of the technical side of it all too. And like, do you like busting out a soldering iron and like hooking things up and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I've always been interested in like connecting things, and which is funny because in general, I would say I'm more like, when we talked about hemispheres of the brain, like I'm more right brain. I know that's kind of antiquated now, but that.
So wait, what does that mean again? So right brain means
a lot of like abstract,
right? The artist side, right?
Yeah. And then left would be more like good at math, engineering. These are sweeping generalizations.
Yeah, left is more like, I remember exactly the question that Lidge just asked me.
Totally. I can recall that
Right.
quickly. And I'm like, I've taken the data. We've both taken the data in, but I've rolled it in a ball of Play-Doh with all my other data pieces. So if you're asking me to take like one out, that's really hard for my brain. See?
I like that, though. That's good stuff. I mean, to me, that's where all the fun is in making records and making music and the creative things. Having just spent a weekend in the studio doing a bunch of songs with friends, I find that I don't want to work this way all the time, but when I'm doing it for fun, I'll stay up all night long. And I like when you get into that place where you have you're just so in a zone. You just kind of don't have a clue about the rest of the world. And then all of these ideas and weird things pop up.
Which is so interesting thinking about the roles of engineer and producer and how like now there's a lot more overlap than there was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so those are very different. I definitely feel split whenever I'm on a record where I'm doing both. But I think whenever I don't have to have a hand on the wheel of the engineer of like what's going on with the clocking on the converter,
right,
that is very far from me responding to the bass player and like getting in the flow with him and we're vibing, like I can't get to that place. That's a little walk between those two places in my brain.
Did you ever get really stoned and look at a patch bay full of cables coming out and just go like,
as often as possible?
Hell no.
Actually, one of my favorite Instagram moments I've ever had, even though social media is not for me, I was doing a record at Sony. I think we were at Sony Tree, and that song or that lyric, "Patches, I'm depending on you, son."
I think so.
Oh man, it's a classic, and I was like, "This is the perfect lyric for this giant patch bay."
Oh yeah,
jokes are funny when you explain.
Well,
them.
I remember, the first studio was at Alex the Great, trying to join the band and all the fun, and
they were like,
when they passed me the ball, I was like, sure. And then it was time to go. And I looked at the patch bay and I was just like, oh, no.
Yeah. I definitely feel like if there's not an adult in the room, I definitely feel like, okay, I'll be the adult.
You got to be the adult.
Yes. So I think that's why I'm always trying to get like my systems really good and keep the studio wired up and healthy so that I can like start to, let go of the training wheels. And it can be functioning just with the, like iPad remote.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. It really does come down to it. It's like when you build the machine and everything's running and it's all like humming and well-tuned, your experience becomes hopefully a few buttons you got to hit right.
Yeah, getting that really small is one of the only ways I found to like be a gift to my future self that wants to be more in the music.
Yeah. Yeah. So rewinding a little bit, the interests that you find yourself wanting to do a little bit of everything, how much of that was the tech stuff? How much, like, what was your experience getting interested in the tech stuff? Because you described photography, music.
It was super self-taught. I had an inbox and a lot of friends who were making music. And it's really just like, how's that work? And I just like relentlessly keep trying to find out.
Did you start by going to get some sort of job that, you could pay bills with, but then also doing that, the creative stuff and like exploring the inbox and experimenting on the side? Or did you just make that your main thing?
I mean, I always kind of feel like as long as I can, because I was playing in bands, you'd have some money from shows, probably not a lot. I was working at the only like a non-music job I've ever had was working at the Lila Bunch Library at Belmont. And it's still sort of my dream job. And it was like the reference section when it was quiet at night. Ugh, it was amazing.
Especially after a day in the studio, you're like, I just want to hear silence.
Yes, I feel that way so often. It's just like piecing together all the things and being like, do I like this life? Do I like a semblance of things? And I thought less about this is the destination of my career, and I'm going to stick with that for a long time. I think once I saw the French horn path, I was like, I couldn't do just that.
Right.
I want a wider thing that includes all the things. And then I think once I started producing, like I had artists and friends say, I think you should do this. This seems like that thing that gives you the width. And it did. And that was like a fun, but I didn't know that in advance. I kind of backed into that knowledge of, oh, I get to play sometimes. And sometimes I get to like help the artist sort of like emotionally get to their work and apply practical knowledge to help them get to the thing they want that they don't know they want. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to do that for yourself.
Do you ever think that maybe they just fooled us? They were like, I really think you're good at this engineering and producing thing. You know,
now we're
and then
stuck.
secretly in their head, they're like, that way I get to just sing and play guitar all day while we're doing this.
I mean, I will say I like this side of the desk better. I'm not built to like
be a front person.
Yeah, it just doesn't flip my switch in the same way to manage all the details that go into an artist's career and maintaining spinning all those plates aren't as life-giving to me as helping other people sort of realize a creative vision. And I get to do, make things on my own and sometimes.
Adam Audio's S-Series, crafted in Berlin, is a flagship line of reference monitors featuring 5 models from the compact S2V all the way up to the powerful S5H. The range builds on Adam Audio's iconic heritage with new technology for improved acoustic performance. With new woofers, redesigned waveguides, and a DSP engine, the S-Series ensures accurate frequency response, consistent dispersion, enhanced detail, and a forward-looking digital connectivity. Backed by a 5-year guarantee, Adam Audio monitors embody durability and professional sound for your studio at adamaudio.com. Let's back up and talk about your studio now. So now that you have MOXE, tell us what it is. You know, how do you describe it? When you're in your space, I mean, there's 20 acres. That's massive amount of land and everything, which is beautiful. I bet it's nice to be outside. And then, of course, you got the control room space and all the tools you use, but then you got the recording spaces where all the music happens.
Yeah, I always say MOXE isn't a studio, it has a studio. But I think it's
in a studio and it has a studio?
No, it's not a studio, but MOXE has a studio.
Okay.
So I think my vision for the place is sort of a very long build. It's like 15-year plan.
To kind of build out the studio. Yeah, we were talking about that. Like, do you ever get your studio right when you first start?
Well, not even, yes, for sure. I'm always going to be tinkering, but not even just the studio, but like a place for, artists care a little bit. I care a lot about like taking care of the unicorns. And I think sometimes recording and making songs and making albums, other things are kind of like on the throne, and all these logistics go into it. It's like, this whole thing is designed around this engineer, and the artist is just kind of like there.
Like you're saying, that's sometimes a typical studio.
Not even just the studio. I think just sometimes organizationally in how a studio day gets booked, a band gets booked, all those different parts come together. The logistics of that sometimes I always feel like, this isn't creating an environment for the best work to get made.
Right. You're saying typically all that's assembled in a way that is good for the engineer, but maybe the artist is considered second. Like, sometimes I hope it's good for the artist too, kind of thing.
Yeah, and not even like on purpose all the time. It's just kind of like people are they don't, the manager doesn't always have experience with the internal pipeline of production of getting, of what it means to pull a vocal out of a mix after we've already gone to mixing, what it means to recomp a vocal.
Right.
There are technical implications of that. It's historically been okay that you don't know that. And it's increasingly more difficult, I find, as the industry's just kind of all squished together in some ways. And everybody's like just making it up and, trying to figure out how to get things made and how to, make a living doing it. And
yeah.
So
and
the
are you
artist
even talking to a real person at the label, or is it maybe an AI bot that's asking for this?
At this point, who knows?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. And I loved your line of taking care of the unicorns. You immediately followed that with Throne, which makes me wonder if there was a subtle, like a subconscious reference to that video about the squatty potty with the unicorn pooping ice cream.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, because I always say, if you take care of the unicorns, they poop rainbows.
There you go. That's
so,
it.
Maybe that's just a true archetypal
I like it. I like it. But it's a great concept because, whether the unicorns are the artist you're working with or whether they're just like this ethereal music that's coming together from the group of people in that moment, you do feel it.
Totally. That's a great point. It's everybody. It's like everybody's dignity in that being preserved is actually worth an extra amount of effort rather than everybody come in and play their thing, and you get in a different posture. You get more in your ego or something like that versus like a more collaborative thing of like, okay, I'm just going to play my part and try to respond and do the best I can and just kind of like stay open. It gets hard to stay open.
Yeah, it does.
When it's so stressful and everybody's like, okay, you haven't made a record in 4 years. I hope you're the best you've been all week and you spent all this money. I hope, it's just all that gets in your head. And
it's like, what do you mean you can't hit the high note at 2 a.m. after you've been singing
now
all day?
Relax. And, it's just, it's just a hard place to kind of preserve, but it's the whole thing.
Well, so a couple of thoughts. The situation where there is an outside observer, maybe a manager or a label or somebody who keeps checking in, that can be stressful.
And it can be the artist sometimes too that's the heavy in that way that just feels like, I should do this. So I'm just going to you go into I'll say I go into wanting to maybe if I control more things, it'll, it's like, actually,
right.
It doesn't work to clamp down on it and forge a path unless you've sort of stepped back and assessed what's happening and talk through what's happening and get the data and then push forward. It's kind of like, let's just do something, even if that something's not right.
Yeah.
It gets hard to hold space for just hanging and thinking for a second. That's a hard sell sometimes.
Well, but your point about the obstacle of your own ego in the studio is really significant to me, especially after this big weekend I just did. I got to the end of it and I noticed that we did 8 songs. They're all written by different ones of us, and we threw the band together. And I got to the end and I was like, wow, in this situation, I just really didn't I communicated a few things to people, but I tried to do it in a way where it was like, just communicate the essence of the idea I have, but don't try and say, play it like this.
Totally.
And otherwise everybody really just did their thing. And I get to the end, I'm like, wow, this is so fucking cool, But importantly, at the end of it, I still felt like 100% ownership of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a cool feeling because a lot of times when you try and control everything on a session, I feel like it's because you want to have that feeling of ownership of your own creative thing, but you're kind of getting in your own way, right?
Yeah, you bulldoze a path without thinking wait, is less enough to say, here's the vibe I'm going for. Past that, I trust your years of experience and the reason why you're here to do the rest. And let me check in with me if you need more direction, but here's what I'm going for. Because I feel like if they're not in on it, people can just shut down and be like, okay, whatever you want. And I'm going to get the most basic thing from them. And I'm like, well, what are we doing here?
Yeah. So, and then let's keep riffing on that. Over the course of a session, let's say you're doing a collection of songs in the studio. Do you notice a difference between that, like the settling in first song that you do versus once you get settled in and when things start happening too?
Yeah, totally. I get really nerdy about the schedule, especially if it's a record that I'm producing and it's a record start to finish, which I love doing. And MOXE is really, suited for and built for.
Start to finish right through mix. Mix is included in that session. And how long is a session? Just like typical, are we talking a couple of weeks? Or are we talking
I think I've done all those things. Yeah. I think it can be all those things. And my I found my current jaunt that I'm on is like 2-week sprints, usually 3. And then some amount of cleanup, maybe in person, maybe remote.
Do you like to book yourself a little breather in between those 2-week things?
Do I like to? I would like to. Yeah, it's really hard.
It is hard. And sometimes you don't want the breather. Sometimes you're like, it feels like a vacuum as soon as everybody leaves.
I think I'm on the other end of the spectrum right now where I long for a breath, but want to like...
You mean from this podcast already?
I really want to leave, but I don't know how to tell you.
You just did.
So well, that's fair.
I'm just trying to keep the unicorn going. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about this recent session for me and the first song and playing with the musicians in the band and that in the uncertainty of like, oh, that's the idea they're going for. And, oh, do I like that? Is that good? Is that bad?
How much did you talk in advance in like pre-production?
Not much. We just got right into it.
Oh, interesting.
We had the songs, and the songs, things I've learned doing this are like, all you need is a sketch of a song. As long as it can be charted, the chart is pure gold. Because when you don't have something written down, you can make a great recording, but you really rely on like everybody's heads being in it together, and you rely on kind of getting it right at that first take or something.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the style you're recording, but in that way it is like, some people are like, get that away from me.
A chart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I know the form and I don't, puts me in a different space. So I try to go with whatever people want.
Yeah.
But the thing about like the day one feeling of getting comfortable and I'm curious, did y'all have like a playlist of here's the sound we're going for? Did you talk about that at all?
Not really.
Not
really. We just did it.
And
I mean, I already had the instruments. I had our setup for tracking, so it's kind of like that's going to be our sound.
Yeah, that's awesome. You really did have authority over the creation. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, as the studio person, I definitely had that. It's like everybody's invited, and it's going to be the sound that these mics are sounding. But there's still a lot of room for like, if I heard something somebody else was doing, and I thought we could push it harder or something. That's what I'd suggest. I think you can, one of the guitar players I suggested, I think a compressor before your amp is going to help that cool part you're doing really bloom into the
I think that's
track,
the sauce is like everybody bring their best. Like you have a knowledge of the gain staging of compressors and, all this stuff. So you can say, I'm going to offer this thing if everybody's doing their thing to make the whole thing sound better. It's such a creative thing to like ideate what the sounds are going to be, and whether that's in conjunction with an engineer and producer relationship, or the artist has a vision for it of saying like, I want the Fleetwood Mac drums. Like like whoever. It's just interesting too to see who doesn't care and who cares.
Right.
In some scenarios.
And I find there's great value in allowing somebody who cares to express that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm like, whoever has the strongest feeling about that, let's go in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear that. I like that.
And I mean, I know there are conflicts that can happen. I don't run into those as much anymore as I used to when I was younger,
That sounds nice.
Yeah, but I mean, also like when I was younger, we were taking forever to work on a record. And hello, fly. There's a fly right over there.
Does it sound like a phaser?
Yeah, it does. It sounds like it's like we just threw a phaser on the podcast mix. And if I was really good at this, I'd throw one on for this mix right now.
There's always post-production. That's on my rider. I request phaser on vocal at all times.
Awesome. The you and Kevin Parker of Tame Impala, right?
It's us just out here phasing
away. No, that process of like discussing what an idea is and what we should go for in any given moment. There was one song we did that I had written, and all these songs were poems shared by our old singer, and then we each took one and wrote a song out of it. So it was like, artsy and weird, and I have no idea what we were singing about kind of thing.
And you're like in the band.
And I played in the band too, yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level too.
Yeah, and it was fun, and that's kind of what I wanted. That's kind of what I insist on when I do that, because I'm like, I don't want to be an engineer this weekend. I just want to be a musician. And
Awesome.
I'll do the engineering part. But so there was one song and I was just like, this one is supposed to be like, the poem is about the summertime and living in Siberia and how terrorized you are because the Vikings could be landing on your shores at any moment when your back is turned and come and kill you.
Yeah,
right?
it's
kind
informative.
Of a heavy topic. And I was like, so like, how do we make this a combination of summer and just the most terrorized feeling at the same time?
Yeah.
And so Kevin was, he was like, I'm going to play 12 strings. So he took us straight to California with his guitar part. And then the rest was like, kind of distortions and stuff like that. And it was great. It was a great way to.
Did you have those moments where it's like, oh, okay, that makes me want to do this?
Totally. Yeah.
I love that the creative domino thing, which is often led by somebody who has a creative impulse, who has the first creative impulse, if you leave space for it,
Yeah. And I didn't know how we wanted to do the song, so it was kind of cool to just do it that way, like describe something abstract and then just see how people respond. So there was a quote that I saw on your Instagram. Instagrams, and we still got to come back and talk about your studio because we haven't quite gotten a description of it. But you had a quote on there and it said, I think it was on there. It said, I heard the longer you entertain what's not for you, the longer you postpone what is.
Mm.
What does that mean to you?
It just resonated. Yeah, I think we just hold on to things. I don't want to get too heavy with you, Lidge, but
heavy.
Here we are.
Please get heavy.
Vikings in the summer. I think holding on to things that are familiar or that are known is a much easier move than going out on a limb. And I think there's something about like taking responsibility that you're the person that's supposed to move. And
right.
Sometimes it feels like life can happen at you or things can happen at you versus like, oh, maybe I can pivot here and make a different choice.
So in an engineer context, that might be using the same mics that you always use versus trying something different and new.
Yeah, even philosophically to like, that seems like harder to do as a philosophical change, which is like, something like,
We're not going to use microphones
outside of time and space. This is what good drums sound like. Like if you have sort of an embedded idea of drums sound good like this, to me, that makes less sense. I had an engineer one time be like, I have the best drum sounds in Nashville. And I was like, my brain sort of is like short-circuited because I was like, oh, I can't conceptualize what that means because like on Mule Variation, on Tom Waits records, maybe a 57 in the bathtub while the drummer's in the living room is the best drum sounds. So I think more in and in service to a higher creative vision, not on their own perfect, because I think that's a ghost. That's kind of like a made-up thing that we all have a different idea about. So it's difficult to talk in those kind of generalizations with other people who are very different. And engineers and producers stay in their cave a lot. So like it's hard to kind of get to collaborate together. But I think there's such value when we do, when it's like, oh, that's how you do that?
Yeah. Oh, you mean like because you're working with somebody who has an unusual way to mic up the drums and then you see it on the session because you follow their idea kind of thing?
Could, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. I learn a lot from people. I mean, shit. I've learned, it's funny to think about like how much do we learn from other people and how much do we learn from our own, just stumbling on it.
Yeah, both. I think we need both. I probably have a deficit of there's a lot of producers that just make cool things that I think sound good to my ears. How can I get that knowledge sometimes? It's like, it's such insular stuff and we make it in such little capsule stuff that I'm so interested in process. And it's so like in like a painting, so many other like disciplines are made so differently and like really iteratively, like you make a thing and then like step back and edit and paint over and start again. And that's, I don't see that happen a ton
in the studio as much.
Yeah. And making
like
records.
we
But I
make
think it's
something
really,
and then we try and keep fixing it sometimes, you know?
well, so a lot of times it's like, this has to get done.
Right.
It's just like moves so quickly that,
Yeah.
you know, and that's how it is. I think there's benefits to all the things. I just like having all the things as options.
Well, I like doing things quickly, and, you know, doing something quickly and putting it out and then just doing it again next weekend or whatever, or next week. That can be an iterative process too.
Yeah. I mean, I've made records in 3 days with 15 songs, and I've taken 3 years to make a record.
Yeah.
And I like both of those processes, but I wouldn't say like this is the one I choose forever.
Hey, Rockstar, come on over here. I've got a secret to tell you. Want to know how I get a consistent sound mixing over 1,000 hours of recording studio rock stars? Well, my secret is using Isotope, RX, Ozone, Neutron, and Nectar to make this podcast sound great. Right now, you are hearing RX Breath Control, Declick, Declip, DS, Deplosive, Voice Denoise, Ozone Multiband Compression, Neutron EQ, and Limiting, all from Isotope. Use the secret code ROCK10 to get 10% off over at isotope.com. Yeah, I do notice that I'm struck often by what does happen if you just do it again. So like if you sketch a song out in a simple way, you can look at that and think, it's okay. I mean, I kind of feel something good in there, but I don't know, maybe that's just a piece of shit. And then you take it into the studio with the band and it gets redone, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
But then what happens if you take that one again and do it again as a band, you know?
Totally. And if you're still in the studio, yes. Getting to market is the thing that sometimes it's like, this is going up on Spotify in 3 days.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that lives forever. I mean,
yeah,
ideally.
Well, and then, you know, maybe just make another record. I mean, I find myself in a combination of making professional records with clients that are trying to, you know, pursue their career, and then just doing stuff for fun too. And I'm not sure if I know 100% what the difference is, but I do.
Yeah. Hopefully they're both pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you ever feel like the ones that are made for the intent of the career, like the ones that are made for fun, sometimes you second guess whether like maybe this is actually better than the one that was made with intention for the release?
I think this is like a space that I'm always trying to get to. And I guess for me, the for fun column would be, I host these like writing production camps, and I just have friends over and we all live in the house together. And I make a schedule and I try to like make time for like walks and yoga and like try to take care of ourselves while we're here, and pair everybody up, and then we switch and then record the songs and produce the songs, and as far as we can get in
That's amazing.
the 5 days or whatever.
How does one get invited to such a thing?
I try to do it as often as possible because that's my fun column. But it's like, okay, when can I save up enough to hold the studio for fun times?
Yeah.
You know. So anytime you're on the list.
Oh, thanks.
That would be my like dream if I could like just do that all the time and like I want to like have a bus outside, you know.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yeah.
But I think that trying to have them be very similar of whenever we're going to make this record for a commercial release, and yeah, it'll have a whole lifetime with the audience, but while it's yours, while it's the artist's, let's make this whole terrarium for us to live in while we make it.
Yeah.
And because that's a really important, maybe I dare say the most important moment. And we get to enjoy what's made out of that moment, whether it's an instant or 2 years, forever.
Yeah.
But the quality of the air in that terrarium is, you know.
How often do you find yourself rebuilding the studio right in the moment? How often you're like, fuck it, that's not working. And then you're moving all the mics into the kitchen and trying to mic up the...
Yeah, I move stuff all the time.
You do stuff like that all the time.
Yeah. So I've got 3 big rooms at MOXE that have different sort of sounds. And I started designing it in Google SketchUp.
Yeah.
And,
that's how I started designing.
Really? Yeah.
I hated it.
Shout out Google SketchUp. I know it has its
Google
limitations.
SketchUp out.
Well, I only got so far, and then I had a draftsman friend that I was like, "Can you make this a real house that stands?" And so my friend Don Chaffer, I don't know if you know Don.
Not yet.
It's great. We and his wife Lori are in this band Waterdeep, and they're friends who moved and had made their own studio in Kansas, and so I'd bring over the blueprints and have different friends be like, "Okay, what if we did a big room here? Like, let's look at the number of, would we want to record drums in the dining room? Maybe. Okay, well, let's make the panel 16, at least 16 XLRs or, something like that."
Right.
All those details, I just put a ton of thought into it and had all the, Airtable spreadsheet stuff happening.
Yeah.
And
Wire everything.
That's right. So there's 3 big rooms. One we call the gym that's kind of like a wooden, I think it's a hexagon. But it's got a certain sound that's kind of like airy.
Does it have the big windows too? I feel like I've seen pictures with the big.
It's got windows, but it's got
like
little
a bay
skinnies
or something.
It's got like little skinnies at the top.
Okay,
It's like a tower.
Okay.
This isn't the main tracking room.
Okay.
This is a side kind of like towery kind of thing. And but it's just one of the rooms. So they all ideally are just kind of flavors for the producer and engineer who already has the vision and is like downstream, or it could be the source of inspiration too.
Yeah. Talk about the coming up with flavors. What's fascinating to me about that is there are a couple of conversations you can have about building studios. One is the control room, where you might conclude that, perfection and symmetry and the perfect amount of absorption and speaker placement, everything is what matters. And then the other is the space where the microphones are going and the instruments are happening. And that becomes a different
Both very
set
important.
of possibilities. Like you can have rooms that are, might be measurably as like, well, that's quite balanced, and there's bass trapping that helps with that. But then you can also have spaces that are just like the wooden stairwell that goes up there. It just
Totally
sounds incredible in there, kind of stuff.
Which is kind of affirming to hear the, what's the Simon and Garfunkel, was it the Boxer that they found the best drum sound in front of the elevators at Capitol or wherever it was? And it's like, la, 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 that
Right.
big thing. I heard some story about that's where they recorded it in front of the elevators and they had to like wait, so it wouldn't ding in between.
Did they open the elevator door so it was just an empty elevator shaft?
I never put
More
that together.
importantly, did anybody want to push anybody else into
Listen,
the elevator on
wow,
that
took a
session?
turn.
I don't know.
That would have been a different record.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But you know what I mean? It's just like use your ears. I think both are important to have. I have bass traps kind of like hidden where it looks like it's a wall, but that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of like a home studio that was labored over I have like sculptures to break up standing waves and stuff like that.
Right. For diffusion, just put big Roman Grecian sculptures on the walls.
Or hang from the ceiling.
I wonder if that's partly why they did that and have all those Grecian things. I wonder if they knew what they were doing.
If only.
So what about, I also think about you with the MBox and all those experiences of the first experiences of recording, just being in all these unusual spaces with a little portable studio. I think there's a huge value to that.
I made an EP with my friends in a car on a spring break road trip one time.
Awesome. While you guys were driving?
Yes.
Everything got recorded?
With an MBox and a 57.
Oh, hell yeah. I want to hear that.
New England Conservatory of Rock. Shout out.
Nice. And where were you headed for spring break?
We made a song about every city we went to. Boston, I think somewhere in Canada, New York. We just went to all these cities just to like go on a trip. And so we, our friend was an engineer and we just ran it through the car stereo. It was a blast.
That sounds like awesome. I love it. Yeah. So, and then like having a control room where you know what the hell you're hearing, I think that's valuable, especially if you're going to hear all those, what the mic sounded like in that unusual space. It really gives you
totally.
kind of a
It's
cool
like
impression of it.
Yeah, it's like a studio within a studio. So it's like a self-contained, the control room's its own, you can conceptually think about it. Especially, I don't know why this is related in my brain, but as a kid of the 90s with like hip hop and R&B, the sampling, when I hear like this old B.B. King record that has its own sort of like sonic thumbprint, it sounds like a record. It sounds like 62. It sounds, whatever. Yeah. And then they put it in this whole other 90s, whatever, however you would describe 90s engineering that's maybe more clean or, just that sort of patchwork collage really flips my switch. I'm super interested in that. Like,
you mean on the same record, that combination? Or?
Yeah, on a song where it was like, it wasn't the Beatles. It wasn't like, early Beatles, I guess. But that, the contrast, the high contrast of that sound, that's probably not a great way to describe it, but that blew my little mind. And trying to chase that is always really interesting because of the contrast. So the rooms feel like sampling in some ways, because there's no difference really if you're in this really reverberant gym room and you put a gate on, I think we had Terrence Clark playing my Vista Light kit the other day. And it's like, that is a sample. And yes, I'm live tracking drums, but to my ears, they're sounding the same. And being able to sort of like paint that and collage that way is really fun.
So when you say sample, you mean it almost sounds like, oh, this is a cool drum sample that we could, cut and paste kind of thing.
Yeah.
Make a loop out of or whatever.
Which I definitely did on my inbox. You only have so much. I'm like working with like a vocal, but I'm, even when I was on tour with Katie Herzig and, a bunch of people for a while, I would use the machine, that Native Instruments, like an MK2 or whatever.
Yeah.
And, but I would play electric guitar into the, I would basically sample myself and like trigger these guitar notes.
Oh, that's cool. That's super cool. Have you found the little app for iPhone called Koala?
I don't think so.
You're going to love it. You're going to be so happy that I told you about that.
I can't wait.
You can do exactly that. It's a little sampler one, and then you can just play back all those samples of sounds.
I love it.
I should be doing it live on this right now to demonstrate, but I'm not that fast. So it's funny that you said social media wasn't so much of a thing for you, because I was really kind of knocked out by your Instagram and how you did stuff. And then you're talking about these samples and editing. And one of the things was this band Coin with synths and like fun stuff going on in the studio. And your videos, you did this cool like glitch editing. When somebody would talk, you'd go, and you like loop it like that.
That's theirs.
That was them doing it?
But that's so indicative of their sound. And honestly, one of my favorite things about having the studio is having other people, other producers and bands that I'm not producing the record, I'm not engineering on. And I just get to observe and how different ways, or like the myriad of ways that records are made is baffling. Like how many different ways you can accomplish the same thing is so interesting, and like what works and what settings. But watching them play around with all these like vintage synth craziness, that was a whole educational series for me. I loved it.
Do you have some house synthesizers?
We've got some. Yeah. Got a little Sub 8, little Moog. And JP 8000 that Roland.
Wait, is that the little guy that does voice?
No, the JP 8000. I think it's Roland. Daniel Tashin told me about the JP 8000. I was like, what's just like I know all the fancy synths. What's a good solid synth? And we talked about some ones, and I tried that one out, and it's so like cool and affordable. And I got one on Reverb. It was awesome.
Do you play it yourself sometimes?
Sure.
I've
Mellotron.
got what's that?
Mellotron.
Oh, you got a Mellotron. Oh, sweet. And how often does somebody play the note all the way till the note ends?
Often. Yes.
So I have been outfitting my studio with synths, and I discovered the Behringer stuff, and I was like, oh, that's really, I can get that, So I got some of the semi-modular things, which really sound cool. And then I got one keyboard called the DeepMind, which is like kind of an all-in-one. And then I got, the controller for Native Instruments, Contact, and the
I have so much Native Instrument stuff. Yeah.
And it's all really fun. And but one of the things I do find myself doing is gravitating towards the DeepMind. Not that particular brand is so conclusive. It's just that it's a keyboard that has the knobs on it.
Self-contained.
It's self-contained.
Yes.
And I'm just like, when I'm thinking of an idea in the studio, it's like there's no time. There is only like turn it on and go.
Yeah. Unless
you're experimenting like kind of off the clock or ahead of time. And so that's the one that I keep going to where I'm like, I can't, for the life of me, I can't figure out how to find or store a patch on it, but at least I can flip around until I stumble on something that's ballpark and then grab the knobs and start adjusting it. And then volume ride, just do the volume and do some like filters and stuff.
And knowing that you have comfort on that is so handy when you've got to do it really quickly.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, I know I can execute on this. And it's like, oh, we have a little more time. You know what I've been wanting to dive into is this, whatever new thing you got.
And like come up with your own sound.
Yeah, or it's like, okay, do we have 5 minutes? Okay, go make a sandwich and let me explore for a minute.
I'll make a Sonic sandwich.
Sponsored by
Sonic Sandwiches.
Specifically, not the chicken tenders.
What do songwriters, music producers, DJs, EDM, TV, and film composers all have in common with you and me? We all need incredibly cool sounds that instantly transport the music we are creating to the style that we want. This is why Native Instruments is your ultimate toolkit with a massive library of sounds for your studio. Whether you want to create hip-hop, indie pop, classic rock, meditation music, pumping dance floor beats, or full orchestral arrangements, Native Instruments' Complete Bundle offers you everything you need, from drums, loops, and beats to wild synths, ultra-realistic strings, and vintage electric bass, guitars, and keys. The list goes on and on. I personally love recording real bands in my studio and then adding cool drum samples, synths, and futuristic keys from Battery, Contact, Massive X, Guitar Rig, and Hybrid keys, for example. Plus, it's a great way to make your productions sound modern and unique. Use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off or get Complete Start for free today with a bundle of 2,000 sounds and 6 gigs of samples over at nativeinstruments.com. The S-Series by Adam Audio, crafted in Berlin, is a flagship line of reference monitors, blending advanced engineering and in-house design. With 5 models in various sizes and configurations, these monitors build on Adam Audio's iconic heritage while incorporating new technology for improved acoustic performance. The range includes the compact S2V with the 7-inch woofer, the 3-way S3H with twin 7-inch woofers, the vertical S3V with a single 9-inch woofer, and the powerful S5H and S5V main monitors featuring a 12-inch woofer and exceeding 131 dBSPL per pair. Despite differences in size and power, all these models provide highly analytical sound for professional audio applications. The S-Series includes new woofers, mid-range drivers, redesigned waveguides, and a DSP engine for crossover optimization. The result is accurate frequency response, consistent dispersion, enhanced detail in bass and mid-frequencies with wider frequency ranges, and forward-looking digital connectivity, all in a durable design. The S-Series ensures longevity in your studio, backed with a 5-year guarantee at adamaudio.com. Howdy, rock stars. We're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of the show. My guest today is Jordan Hamlin, joining me here at Recording Studio Rockstars headquarters.
HQ.
I need a better name for this actual podcast studio. What do you think we should call it?
Do you?
Hey,
Velma?
Can I have you come down with that, Laura? Yeah.
I tried to.
If it matches where it was, it'll be a lot easier for this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How about...
and then, yeah, it's just a tightener ring there.
Does that seem similar?
Yep.
Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow.
Edit there. Yeah, it's perfect.
Cool.
God, what is meow, meow, meow from? That's like meow, meow, meow. That's like an old commercial, isn't it?
Oh, Meow Mix?
Yeah, I think it is.
I want chicken. I want liver. That was the Austin Powers voice doing.
Tell us about your studio more. Tell us about the control room. Like when you're sitting there working, what are you looking at? What are the tools that you're surrounded by?
I'm looking at trees, first and foremost.
Out the window. So there must be a window in front of you.
There's windows on windows on windows, yeah. The tracking room, you like look into the tracking room, but then the tracking room has windows. So you can still kind of get hit in the face with the sunset. And it's like, have you eaten? Do you need to walk outside? That's always good to have a natural reminder.
Yeah.
When in the cave. But then the console would be the next thing that occurs to me. Of a Rupert Neve 5088 that I love. And then I've got two like buckets on either side of the console, and then kind of these L pieces of furniture that has more racks on the side. And I kind of keep my pre's together and then effects together.
Do you find yourself using the 5088 pre's all the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the EQ I love. So I go there. And it's great because it can disappear a little more than some pre's that are really color forward kind of things. And but if you want to push it one way or another with like the, red silk kind of thing, or even just like lean into bass, what you're hitting where, like it has a lot of places that I can go. So having that as that's usually my first go-to on most things.
Yeah. So that's cool. So you got the console, and then what's a way to think of how do you use a console in a world of Pro Tools?
I love to change that up and like explore different ways to use it. So I set up my patch bay where it's all normal, so it kind of just hits my converters straight line from like mic to wall to hits the pre and the EQ. And then I've got a sort of a wide choice you can make in your flowchart of if you want to go to faders. Sometimes I like to have the pre's and EQ going straight into Pro Tools, but then have it bust back out to the console where I can record a mix on faders and then just print that into my session again.
So busing back out from Pro Tools, is it like an insert where you could have the pre hit the EQ, then go to Pro Tools, then come back to the exact same track on the insert return, and now it's hitting the fader, what's Pro Tools is spitting out?
Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so it's not like you need 24 channels just to record into Pro Tools and then an additional 24 channels on the right to play back or something.
Yeah, you can split it out. And so it's fun to like, sometimes I don't have the bandwidth for that. And I'm like, let's just get the audio, and I'm working in the box, and that serves the project more. It needs more of my bandwidth. So I'm like, oh, well, let's just go in the box, because it's not indulgent, but it's a little indulgent if I'm doing both roles to be like, let me also like experiment with my mix. If I can, yes, please.
Yeah, well, I think about different situations. Like if you're miking up a band in a performance, then you can kind of anticipate that, track 8 is the bass right now going to Pro Tools and coming back on fader 8, and it's still going to be that a little later on. But then it's like, but if you're doing stuff where you're like, okay, we need to be able to like record an idea, loop it, throw it onto a track, double it, quadruple it, throw that, cut and paste that. Let's mute all these tracks and unmute these ones. Then being inside Pro Tools maybe is an easy way to think of it, because you don't have to keep rerouting stuff to faders or something.
Yeah, and sometimes it works out where, I'll think, I want to do it this way going into a record. And once I get into the record, I'm like, ugh, past me. You crazy. So I ended up on the last one having half of the console. I was like it was like my drums and a handful of things. And then the whole right side of the console was all out of the box stuff. So I had like my synths sort of like grouped. And then I really wanted to like dig into the verb, like writing the verb. So I had just room mics on the faders and then just verb, which is crazy to have like 6 faders just for reverb. But, you know, the heart wants what it wants sometimes.
The heart wants what it wants. Well, one cool thing about, one thing I love about having a session set up is when you don't have to think anymore, but like you're like, I want to do an organ overdub. What's the input? Okay, that's 1920. Boom, go, you know? And consoles can help that way too. It's like if you have things on the console and you're like, cool, let's do this overdub. And then you just mute other faders and pull up that one. And now that's feeding into Pro Tools. You don't have to think about it. It's really fun. Or like you're blending some weirdo combination of a close and 3 room mics and something and an effect return, but it's now going out 2 outputs right into Pro Tools, right? Yeah,
it's really like, what do you want to give your creative attention to? Because if I can give more of my creative attention to
creating,
creating, like I'm thinking about like like PC about it of like, can I zoom in on this specific relationship to the organ trim? I'm sending the background vocals. I'm amping it to the Leslie and it's on. And I'm going to playlist 4 or 5 different ones and then choose which one, you know, the motor rotated the coolest out on.
Yeah.
But then I also want to send that to the verb and have the vocals that I sent. I want to play with the relationship of those two. I need a minute to do that. My creative attention, if I'm going to give that much creative attention to the relationship of those 2 tracks, I can't also give it to a vocalist in the ISO booth that needs to be that's asking me questions.
Yeah.
So, making space for some of those things is like you're never going to get the organ to vocal moment unless you schedule it
right,
or do it at midnight, you know?
Well, yeah, and I think about like doing BVs through a Leslie, and I think I've always done those after the vocals were cut, although it would be cool to do in real time. Guitar sounds good through a Leslie in real time.
I kind of keep things up where I can send things multiple places and then just kind of A/B, like, okay, let's send it to the primary bathroom. We have like an amp and mic set up in there, and send it to the gym. We've got a little speaker, just like a monitor type speaker in there. And let's turn on the cascades that are on the rooms or whatever is up. And just have it later, you know, like printing it in time. And in that way, there's no real difference to choosing a plugin, choosing a preset of that. I'm still just A-Bing a different thing, you know?
Yeah, and if you got that stuff on the console, you just pull up faders until you're like, ooh, I like the sound of that. And especially if you have it set up where you just hit a button and now that sound you're hearing out of the board is just printing, committing into the computer. That's
commitment.
A good way to work.
That's a hard one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, plugins are lovely, but I hate the fact that I'm just like, it's not really embedded. It's not really carved into the stone until I bounce that mix, you know?
Yeah.
It's scary.
And then it's really, I was thinking about this the other day at the Avid event we were talking about. That's going to have a sound. That'll probably be like what is it called after the aughts? Where are we now?
I don't know, the 10s.
Yeah, that's
We're
a tough
in the
one.
20s now.
Back to the 20s.
Yeah.
Some things happened the first time around in the 20s, so better hold on.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to be like, whatever, you know, coding is going into whatever plugin you're on, printing it might be like, is that going to be like what ADAT sounds like? I don't know. You know, whatever the equivalent is, I'll bet 30 years from now, it'll have its own sonic imprint.
Yeah.
Where, yeah,
well, you can't open that session 30 years from now anyway with the same plugins on it.
I mean, everything's going to be bots anyway, right?
Bots.
I'm hoping to become one eventually.
Dear bot, bring me my coffee. Okay, so you've got the Neve console, and then what about monitors? Do you have any preference for monitors? In fact, one of the things I saw is you're doing a little clip with Atom Audio talking
Yeah.
about monitoring.
I love Atom monitors. Yeah. I've got the AX7, A7X. I always mix those up. And I love those. They're so, they're a handful of their models that I could say this about, but they're really true.
Yeah.
And, it's always trippy to do what is my mix going to translate in, especially at this moment in recording history, where really you don't know with a lot of confidence what it's going to sound like because the food chain is so, there's so many parts and stops along that food chain to get to consumer ears.
Yeah, we were talking about that. You literally you can't know what you're creating for.
Yeah.
Just hopefully it's a human.
Before I leave it behind, the Atomics are the other figs that I have out, and they've got subs on the back. Yeah.
Oh, great. Which are those? Which ones are those?
Is it the 610?
610s, yeah.
I forget. It was like when it was before it had the label on it. Norm built it. Norm was going to build a console.
Those are so Colin Dupuis, we've talked about those a lot on the show, and because he knew Norman quite well. They were close. And in my experience hearing those Atomic Audio 610s, I was really blown away by him when I heard him in other people's studios.
Yeah.
And they reminded me of my experience when somebody would just like loan me a tube preamp, an old Scott tube preamp or something, my buddy Carter, and he'd had, a pair of old vintage hi-fi speakers, and I listened to stuff on simple systems like that, and I was like, why does this sound so good?
Yeah. I definitely is made by someone who you can tell like also is a listener.
Yeah. Who
listens like that. And I remember he made a 2-unit. It has like 2 pre's. They're kind of like ADMs that he just like pulled from something and made a housing for. And then there's 2 EQ. And I was trying to decide, this was like my first rack unit. This is like in my basement. And I was going back and forth with my friend Don Schaffer and Norm, and I was like, do I need EQ? And his response was, do you need EQ? Do you need sunsets? Do you need beauty? And I was like, okay, I'll get the EQ too. And he was right. I did need all those things.
That's funny. EQ is such a funny thing because I do think at first we use it wrong, or maybe we don't. Maybe we use it brilliantly the very first time and we'll look back one day and go, how can I ever do that again?
Right.
But I mean, I think, at first I felt like I was using it wrong because I really needed to just be more thoughtful about the original thing I was recording. But then I would default to thinking about like mic pre's, don't do anything to it. And there is a sound before you do stuff to it.
Totally.
Which can be pretty cool. But I'm back in the process of discovering, holy shit, I just need to EQ more,
I mean, if you're in like a listening and learning kind of approach anyway, it's usually whenever I'm freaking out, I'm like anxious about not being close enough to the sound that I want, that I start making moves from that space, which is very different than the posture I'm talking about of like listening and being like, I'm gonna let it tell me first, of like just listening to where the mics are. It's hard to do when in the heat of the moment you go to like crutches,
Yeah. I actually almost never EQ to tape, but it's because I don't have EQs.
Well, that's a logistic problem.
Yeah, they're in I've got some on my Calrex, but otherwise they're happening. It's a lot of times I'm just trying to cut through a great preamp and then know that I'll do some stuff in Pro Tools,
Yeah, and I like, there's like a whole world of, like when I'm have headphones on or listening in the speakers, the mode that I go in is, I'm not thinking about the chain at that point. It's a million things that I'm hearing, and I'm trying to zoom in all the parts of it, and then I go into problem solving, and then I start thinking about all the different problems or all the different, like, what could be making this sound hairy and electric that I don't want. And that's when I switch into the, left brain or whatever. But whenever I'm like listening, there's a certain thing of holding space for that kind of given magic that just kind of happens.
Yeah, there's a thing to be said, and it gets said a lot about like don't ever substitute the performance for trying to tweak a sound. Don't ever, because we can do that. We can try and adjust something that's like, oh, we just missed the actual performance that was so brilliant.
Yeah,
and I love those experiences where I'll push for a better sound in another performance, like in a recording vocals too, and I'll suggest things. Here's better phrasing here. Let's get this word right. We get the pitch right. And then we go back to the comp and I'm like, nope, I used a lot of take 0 in that one,
I love...
It was all wrong, but it sounds better than...
Yeah, it's sometimes past you and future you. It's like you're not always right, and having some perspective is really helpful. But I love when I can zoom in on, like, I just have to get a vocal. If it's not like tracking a band with a vocal.
Yeah.
Just me and the artist kind of working through a performance on a song is one of my favorite things.
We finally got to vocals, and I do have lots of questions for you. So anywhere away from here. One of the things I noticed on your Instagram, you had this sort of video clip of the song, I think it was Anywhere Away From Here. Katie and Sarah, I think, remember the two artists
totally
playing together. Tell us about, they're these powerful, powerful singers with big voices. And it looked like you had them with no headphones, just sort of singing on mics right next to each other.
Totally.
Talk about that, because you've worked with so many vocalists, and you talked about, you mentioned how much you love doing vocals. What are some things you've learned about just capturing a really amazing voice, especially a powerful voice? Because that can be scary. Like,
totally.
There's nothing worse than setting up a mic and then you're like, oh God, is my mic crunching out when that loud note?
It's so scary. And a situation like that is especially challenging. I've gotten to do a lot of videos at MOXE. And that one and this other one with Molly Pardon come to mind, where the video is sort of the point. And audio, get what you can in some ways, because they need the space they need for the shots. And that just eliminates some options for me as an engineer. So I can't have them in, isolated booths.
If video is the original intent.
Right. So like in that Molly Pardon video, in the same tracking room as that one, I used only her vocal mic. I had like strings mic'd. We had a room. I had Juan was playing guitar, and so I had his direct, I think we used his DI line, and her vocal mic, which was a Flea 47, and just the room picking up the strings in her vocal mic was the mix that I preferred, that everybody liked. I was like, my mind says that's crazy, but my ears say like that's how it sounds best.
Yeah, I've always been struck by how, the vocal mic across the room, the piano that's overdub sounds way better on that than it does on the piano mic up close or something.
Which is really like, if you had an isolation and like we were talking about not using EQ, that's probably how far back you'd put it if you want to not have the attack too crazy or not have too much bass or whatever.
Yeah.
And play with distance and angle, and that's about it.
Think about those original one mic sessions with
totally
big RCA 44 and stuff like that.
The variable you had is distance.
Flea 47.
Oh, I love the Flea 47. It's,
is that
I just love
FLEA.
Yeah. I just love a 47, and it's an amazing recreation of it. It's pretty.
This is not the bass player from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Flea, no. Although he's equally brilliant in his own way.
Have you worked with him?
No, but from your mouth to God's ears. Great trumpet player, No, the Flea 47, I just love it. It's beautiful, but not overly buttery. But it definitely has some probably some like French salted butter, thinly spread.
Interesting. I am massively impressed with iZotope Ozone. I've been mastering a lot of my records recently, and Ozone makes it so easy for me to get a fantastic sound. The mastering assistant will help you get started by measuring your track and suggesting all the settings you need for a professional result based on the genre and EQ curve of your choice. You can even reference a specific song if you want, using simple yet sophisticated modules like clarity, impact, low-end focus, stabilizer, imager, exciter, and spectral shaping, along with powerful dynamic EQ, compression, and limiting. You simply adjust the settings to your own taste, and it sounds incredible. And the magic of master rebalance means you can reach into your mix at the mastering stage and manipulate the vocal, bass, and drums. My bandmates are pretty demanding of my mixes, but now when I send off the masters for approval and get comments back like, "Holy bleep, pristine, damn good mastering, crystal clear, you're a wizard, finally I love my singing, and the drums and bass sound huge," well then I know I'm doing something right. So check out the newest Ozone, RX, and all the other great apps at iZotope.com and use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off. And then you've got some clips on your social media of like mic collection kind of laid out on the couch and stuff. Talk a little bit about some of your favorite mics. I think I spotted Cole's in there, the 4038's Audio-Technica mic. Maybe it was a 4033 or something, one of those classics. I don't know. And a lot of SE microphones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the Rupert Neve.
Yeah.
designs.
A couple in those lists are some of my favorites, like the Coles. I love, of course. Horns and drums. I use them on a lot. Let's
go. Let's talk about use case for each mic as you get to it. Like, so
okay.
The 4038, the Coles, what are situations? You said horns and drums. Where would you maybe put them when you're recording? Would they be, and I've heard people say that if they're horizontal versus vertical, like if you put them as an overhead on the drum, the ribbon actually sags a wee bit and gets a different high end and stuff like that. Is that stuff you
totally noticed? I've used it on trumpet a lot because they're so dark that it's really counteracting what I want to counteract in the trumpet.
Right. It's that idea of contrast. Like if an instrument's really bright, a dark mic.
Yeah. What personality is complementary to yours?
Yeah.
Don't like change. The vocalist isn't going to be a different vocalist, but you can flatter it.
Like, thank God there's not two of me in this room right now doing the interview.
Listen. I love on SE, that SE and Rupert Neve, they did like a collaboration on RN17 is the model.
RN17. And
those are really cool, really interesting. And the Soyuz 014, I use on my piano, the U3 a lot. Also, gear makers, we can use things other than numbers and letters. It's hard to remember. It's hard to remember just like 1076, 513.
It's funny because you said it, and by the time I was even writing it down, I forgot what you said.
Right?
So I just put a question mark.
Just start calling it like the Maverick. I don't know.
But what are some of the qualities to the SE microphones? Because I haven't used them much.
You know, a great mic that I found that's in between, if you're looking in 57, 58 world for those kind of use cases of like, I don't want any bleed. I want it pretty direct. I want it to be able to take a lot of heat for like a powerful singer like we're talking about. Like I've used it on Terra Potenza. Or even the SM7B, those kind of things. They've got a mic called the VX7, I think. That SE vocal mic, it's a great, like, affordable. I travel with it a lot. I took it to Mexico on that KT Tunstall thing we did in a abandoned disco nightclub.
Oh, nice.
On the Brandi Carlile, the Girls Just Wanna Mexico thing. And also the Melissa Etheridge cruise. I brought a rig on, and I would just like go to these abandoned nightclubs because they weren't using them, and we would set up a little studio.
Oh, on the cruise. Yeah, there's a video you did with somebody talking about that.
Yeah, so that's the that vocal mic I just like threw in the road case, and I knew it would like ride well and still sounds awesome.
It said something, the comment was something like they'd closed down the nightclubs for COVID and they hadn't reopened them yet, but you guys wanted to like, screw it, let's go in.
That's
and
right.
I immediately liked you for that.
It was so fun.
Okay, so the calls, the audio technica, what about condenser mics? Like where are situations where you find a condenser mic that might be a little bit bright, really useful?
Those Soyuz are probably my go-to. There's a couple models of them, but
Small
for a
diaphragm
condenser,
or large
small.
diaphragms?
I use that on the piano a lot. Because
Upright piano?
yeah, it's an upright grand, the U3.
So is it the kind of thing where you're playing the piano and you're kind of facing where the harp is and you open it up so that it's all exposed? And you can
I
hear the
keep it
hammers?
off. I feel bad
Nice
about
and
keeping it off, but I did ask my piano tech the other day. I was like, should I have another upright grand in the dining room? And I was like, would I be a more responsible piano owner if I kept the front on? He was like, no. He was like, they're made to be played like that. And I was like, that makes me feel better.
I know. I think about being responsible for my piano all the time, too.
He said I was okay. So we're off the hook now.
Talk about miking the piano. So I don't have an upright grand like that, but I love the way that sounds when it's recorded well. And boy, if I can even find my question on that.
And the
There was
U3.
a particular, maybe it was Lucy Wainwright.
Yeah.
I think maybe that was the one. Yeah.
We used
Ohio is for Lovers.
Oh,
Beautiful
yeah.
piano, wide stereo piano sound.
I
That's
got
you playing?
Yeah.
No way.
It was so
Play with
fun.
that.
I think there's felt on that one, right? We made 2 different versions of that song and just released them both.
You mean a felt piano? You mean like felt over the hammers kind of thing?
Yeah, the U3 and I think also the U1 model have this middle pedal that you can like lock in to the left and it descends a piece of felt in between the hammers and then you can just take it off and it's back to being regular piano.
Yeah, it definitely sounded really dark and I was not sure if that must have been it too.
Yeah. And that like Largo in LA has the same thing but with tacks for a tack piano.
Largo the club.
Yeah.
Where oh my gosh.
John Bryan.
Yeah, John Bryan does his like, you know, like call out any song and
and it's that Elliott Smith piano, like that sound.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a big Elliott Smith fan, right?
Totally.
Okay, cool. So that's just a good reminder that some of these incredible piano sounds we hear, that's the sound of the piano too. You start with the right kind of thing. Like a tack piano is the first thing I remember learning where you're like, oh, you put tacks on and you play it and it sounds like that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that really like, it's physical first.
Yeah.
It's good to remember these.
It's just a good reminder that there's, you know, we've, as engineers, like we put the mic up in front of them, we're trying to like dial in this cool thing for getting the sound. But don't forget that before it even hits the microphone, you have like almost an infinite variety of possible sounds you can make just if you
and that can, yes,
do the instrument the right way and play it the right way and hit it the right way. You know?
Totally. And that's what I mean about zooming in. Like that can be really overwhelming when I think about every part of the food chain that's being affected. Like, yes, how close the mic, I'm putting it to the mic, but also how, you know, many other people are in the room and how that wood was made that year, how close it is away from the wall. You know, I mean.
Especially when somebody's like, hey, can we get that same piano we got last time? That same sound? And you're like,
What's the phrase? No man can walk through the same river twice.
Oh, that's a good one.
that should be our new response. Yeah.
Remember that, rock stars. Next time somebody asks you to get that sound again.
No man.
No person.
That's right. That's right.
No musician can walk through the same river twice.
Both you and the river have changed too much.
Danny Nichols, The Melted Morning. Great tones on that record.
Thanks.
That song, if I'm remembering the song title right, starts out with just kind of like a thumping mallet floor tom thing that sounds really good. I know from my experience, those can be such a cool sound, but you can also really get yourself into some trouble with low end and things like that. What are some good ways to record and mix mallet drums and what are the challenges there? What have you learned about that stuff?
I do like with, I'm always trying new stuff because I do like mallet toms, you know, love it. But it can be aggressive. It can be so gentle. And so I just have all the tools around of like, okay, let's have a towel. Let's have a kitchen towel, like a Terry. The IKEA one's really good.
Good tip. Good tip.
Yeah.
Right there. You get that rock stars IKEA kitchen towels
That's right.
are your drum covers.
It's good. And there's also that, there's somebody in town who makes tortillas, they call them.
Right. Yeah, I haven't tried one of those yet. I heard they're great.
But it's that kind of thing of like, what can I just dampen it a little bit? And okay, that kind of manages the high frequencies a little bit. Okay, if the mic is getting too, if I'm getting too much lows, I'm usually changing the angle of the tom mic and messing with the distance. But
right, so if it's boomy, probably back the mic.
Yeah, move away.
What about the angle? What does the angle do?
How much I'm getting of the attack, and how I usually like less of the attack. So whether I'm doing that, I can do that from a compressor perspective. I can do that from a mic level, but even like angling away from where the mallet is striking the drum.
Right. If your mic is pointed right towards the mallet, it hears more of the attack, pointed away a little bit.
Yeah, it's like its eyes are looking at the point of impact versus like it's still going to hear it. And, all the time we'll have something weird like I was working with Ebony Smith, who's a great engineer, who had the mics turned a certain way. And she was like, before we move it, let's just hear what it sounds like. And it was angled at the ceiling because we were tuning something. And it was cool.
I don't know if you ever heard the story of Glyn Johns getting the 3 mic, or the Glyn Johns drum.
His method.
It was apparently because it was 2 mics on the kit, the overhead and the kick, I think, out in front. And then there was a mic that was on a guitar amp to the right of the drum kit, and they were switching the guitar amp out. So they just rotated it around backwards, but it was still an input. And so now it was looking over the floor tom.
Oh, wow.
Accidentally.
Yeah.
And panned to the side because the guitar had been panned over.
He's like, wait a second.
And they were like, holy, what's that drum sound?
Right. So it was really the universe's method. But
well,
he's
it was
like,
the unicorns. It was the
Glyn Johns is a unicorn.
Unicorns going. They had a lot of unicorns in the 60s, I think, too.
I mean, it sounded like it.
Yeah. I mean, they were all dressed like unicorns on those old
I'm just trying to get back there.
Okay, cool. And then let's see, what else I want to ask you about. Oh, I know what we need to talk about. We need to talk about, let's knock this one out. So the social media stuff, you again, I'm going to poke fun at you for saying you don't do it, but on your Instagram, you seem to have these great little compilation video clips from sessions where you're like, because I know as an engineer, when you're doing a session, you're like, I don't have time for social media. I'm so busy just trying to get the sound right, or I need a break for a second.
And the reason you're taking it is the difference that I hear in there is I'm a good documenter. I love documenting. I always would have a camcorder on my friends' trips and have all these tapes from all these years. So I love documenting, and the librarian in me archives it. And
that's right. You were the librarian.
That's right. So I love to have I'm thinking about how much I love those records from the 60s and 70s and how much I would want a record of that. And because I believe they're unicorns, that's enough. And so the social media part, I'm sort of thinking of it downstream of that, of I've got this really great footage of the time to help us remember it. And we live in a time where it's hard to stay connected to each other. And this is a way that's happening, however imperfect. So it's a lot of highlight reels of 6 months have gone by. I should, tell people that things have happened.
But it's a clever way you do it. Instead of feeling like there's pressure to pose for something.
I mean, I still feel pressure, to be clear.
Right. But what I saw is that you just take all these little outtake clips of interesting moments and you just edit them together into a little reel. It's there's no complete anything in there. There's just little snapshots.
And really, it's just
you're like, wow, I actually got an impression of what that session was like from all these little clips together. But then what you end up with is not too long because you don't want to have something too long on Instagram, right?
Although I could probably make an 8-hour documentary of every record that I do to have the footage, but nobody the documentaries no one is asking for.
But I mean, that was a clever way to do it. It's like, it's easier to end up with lots of not so great video clips or photos in a session, but then compiling them together as a way to make it like interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
and for me, I'm thinking about the only people on my page that that I'm thinking about carrying. I want to tell them about this record in a way that I'm like sharing records that I love with my friends. So I'm like thinking about what was it like under the hood? Like they're only getting the stereo wave file, and that's all they'll ever know of this.
They're finished. They didn't even hear those alternate takes.
Totally. There's a whole world that was happening in there, and we went through so much to get it. And that part is it can be grueling and, blissful and all the things. So to have what everybody else, their life with it, just be that, they're making their own terrariums and their own worlds. So that, how do I communicate where our worlds kind of overlap and link is I'm most interested in that space right now. And that's kind of like glad to hear that's doing a job of being like, here's a snapshot of what it was like.
When do you find yourself most likely to do that? After the 2 weeks are over and you're in the breather moment?
Honestly, like years later sometimes.
Really?
Yes. I literally, the record that's coming out, because it takes a long time, like it takes just as long to put out a record sometimes, and just as much money, honestly, to, after you finish the record, get that record to people. Yeah. In whatever way.
So it does become a useful part of the promotion, is like, oh, here's these clips from when we did this stuff. Do you find it useful to do all that stuff on your iPhone with a little iMovie app or something? Or do you actually, did you teach yourself the video editing and you sort of like very intentionally do it on your computer?
Some mix of both, probably. Like in college, I would make fake Lifetime movie trailers of my friends. Like we would go to the skating rink and I would make like a fake movie trailer. What was it called? Paper Thin Doll. And have like, just make these ridiculous things. So I am, already just dangerous enough with video editing to be able to make things.
Right. They say it's all in the edit.
I mean,
it's all in the timing. Especially comedy.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that way about records too, but it's all in the edit. Like after you track it, there's a whole nother round. I know this is like a adjacent jaunt, but I feel like I'm often fighting for time to edit.
Yeah.
But that like pocketing things and doing like, maybe in LA they have a line item for vocal production or on some like bigger budget things. But I usually don't, but value that work. And it's hard to, for people who aren't in the guts of making records, it's hard to be like, that's actually really important to like hold space just for slightly moving clips for hours at a time. Or like, checking this fade or whatever. That really like small minutia work can be hard to wade through, but can really like make a huge difference sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. And, my attitude is always like, if the musicians are here, we should be in record.
Yeah.
Like they never leave you time. They don't even know that you didn't do the crossfade.
Yeah, that's the priority.
Although they'll hear it, like you play back the vocal take and they'll be like, there's something.
I know.
Like, I didn't, come on, it's just a breath. Because it's just,
can't be everywhere all
we're just trying to get the general gist. And then you're like, all right, I can't ask for that. I got to make it sound good.
I know. Everybody's got their narrative.
I had artists that I worked with where they couldn't even listen to it they couldn't even listen and decide what we had done until I had also gone through and completely tuned the vocal that that they had just done.
I mean, the way we're perceiving ourselves comes up so intensely in making, especially like your own records, or it's just so vulnerable and personal that people, you just can't help but super soaker your feels onto everybody else in the room.
Super soaker your feels.
It's true. It's like, it's just going to happen because you're sort of like worried you're not going to be as creative as everyone else or not be able to deliver. And so, so being compassionate with each other in that moment is really handy.
And all the unicorns are just dripping.
And don't know that they are unicorns.
They don't even know they're unicorns, but you see the colors.
I really do. Thanks, Liz.
Do you ever feel like the time that you've spent watching YouTube videos, trying out mix tricks, and tweaking version after version of your mixes has gotten you nowhere? Have you been looking for a simple, straightforward, step-by-step process for creating a pro mix that won't take you years to learn? What if you could have a Grammy-winning mix engineer who understood all your mixing struggles and could coach you through them? If you struggle with any of these questions, then the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass is just for you. Now you can discover the proven step-by-step mix system from Grammy-winning mixer Craig Alvin for consistently creating a pro-quality mix from your home studio that will sound amazing everywhere. Listen to this quote from one of our students, David. Quote, "Absolutely the most informative and helpful block of information and mentoring on the mix process that I've ever been a part of. That was like sitting behind a mix engineer for years, watching and picking up tips along the way, but condensed into a 6 to 7 hour session." Close quote. Look, I'm so confident that this will take your mixes to the next level that if you can't get a killer mix within 30 days, I'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. So if you're ready to take your mixes to Grammy-winning quality, then go to ultimatemixingmasterclass.com and start now by checking out the free preview of the Ultimate Snare Mixing Trick. And I'll see you at the front row table of the Grammys. Cheers. Modaspira.
Yeah. Latif
Whirly,
Phillips.
real or virtual? Do you have any preferences for real Wurlitzers and miking it up that way versus using virtual instruments? You did talk about native instruments and stuff like that.
I have no allegiance. I love them all.
Are
I have
there
like a
moments where you find that one tool is more appropriate? I mean, we kind of hinted at that already, but do you find sometimes the tool is more appropriate than another? Or is it more like,
appropriate?
Which one are you playing right now? That's appropriate.
I'm probably more thinking about artist experience.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, Latifah is Modaspira. That's our artist project. And so we were having fun, like, it was an In the Box Roads that this is actually a point of conversation. I remember.
Oh, it wasn't in the box
because the hit it was, and
sounds so
there
real.
was an amp like plug-in on it, like a some amp modeler, and for my taste, it was too much hiss. And she was like, "I really like the hiss," and I was like, "Okay, let's let it roll."
Guess, I mean, we're just like hitting. We're just dinging all my questions.
Yes.
Do you record a lot of high gain, quieter instruments and vocals in the studio? What do you find about getting a great sound with minimal noise floor? Because if you have to turn the shit up out of some mic preamps for fingerpicking guitars, have you ever found yourself, you're like, oh my God, that noise is like driving me nuts?
Of course.
So
Yes.
talk a little bit about that. Like what are some examples where you're likely, maybe somebody else might be likely to get that wrong by accident? How do we avoid those things? Or like, are there certain tools you use where you're like, I can count on this to not bite me in the ass later?
Yes. Tell me one time the scenarios, because there's
so like I've had somebody come in to we're just going to do acoustic and vocal. And then they played the acoustic really quietly. And by the time I was mixing, I was like, oh my God, there's so much noise. I didn't know that was
totally.
there.
And my
piano,
brain's
same
like,
thing.
in that moment, what can you do? I can push harder on the performer. Sometimes that yields a good result. Sometimes it doesn't. I can tweak a technical thing, and maybe that'll help if they also might have a threshold for how much I can tweak before they're like impatient and want to move on. So there's certain idea of what I do. And then whenever I'm in the heat of the moment, all that seems to like go out the window.
Yeah.
But you do I guess I would say like having eagle ears up. I definitely do whenever I'm on having to really crank the pre, because I know I'm on a particularly like bucking bronco.
Like you're on a dangerous path. Like
Totally.
This could be a problem later, right?
Yes, it's a higher tight wire. So I'm maybe like I have my hand on, and I'm like writing some of the gain that I can, because I know this section I need to react to it, or
Have you found any particular microphones or preamps that are either more likely to get us in trouble with noise floor, or ones that are like, these this is so clean. I can crank this all the way up and it's never gonna have any noise problems.
Yeah, I think about on the mic level and on the pre level. Like on the mic level, that SE, the VX mic, is one that I know I can throw everything at it and it's not gonna get ugly.
Nice.
The 40s.
Ooh, that was our iPhone charger cable. Fell on the floor, rock stars.
That's the sound of an iPhone Model 13.
You won't hear it, of course. My mixing is way too advanced to hear that.
The gate got it.
Little background item.
The U47, as much as I love it, it doesn't like proximity really loud. It can handle gain if I have them stand back further than feels comfortable.
Right.
And it doesn't have a loss in quality or volume. Like I can get it at a healthy level, but they can't be close to it. Sorry, I'm getting away from the mic.
No, that's all right. And we were talking about that. I was commenting that isn't it amazing how a vowel you can just hear saturation in a single vowel of a vocal performance where everything else sounds great. And it's weird. Mics are weird like that. And then sometimes I start really freaking out later at mix if it's starting to accentuate. I'm like, oh my God, did I screw this whole thing up? And then half the time I'm like, oh, okay, hold on, Lidge. You're just completely screwing up the mix right now. And it was fine to begin with. You just got to back off. You just can't keep gaining it up from there.
Yeah, it's tough because you're going to have a mixed bag pretty much any way you slice it of things that went great and things where it has a air quotes blemish on it.
An air quotes blemish.
You can really contextualize that. But something that got too hot. But if I'm thinking about it if I'm presupposing that pristine is the goal, then I feel really bad about it. But, it's done. If I feel like I'm capturing this artist's vision and I listen to records that I love and find those things also in those records, then I think maybe it evens out in the end. And what makes it to the listener is close enough, even with these imperfections.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember, though.
It is hard, and sometimes you just don't know until you get there. But I mean, like I have mic preamps that if I gain it up, the noise floor is unacceptable to me. But that same mic preamp sounds fantastic for a rock band or something, for like something that's really digging in.
The console can go pretty hot.
Yeah.
I've got these boulders, the boulder pre's.
No, I haven't tried those yet.
Oh man, they're not super common, but Gary Hedden introduced me to them a while back, and they're beautiful and like gooey. And but I have a rack with 6 of them, and I keep it on like 2. They're so hot, so I'll keep that in mind if I've got something where I need more headroom. They're there for me.
Yeah, and then the mic itself can have noise floor. So, for example, an SM7 is famously low gain, and you have to crank it up, and like they're noisy as hell when you have to turn them way up.
I usually use a like one of those SE Dynamites or.
I find that didn't make a damn bit of difference.
Really?
Yeah, so the noise floor is in the mic anyway.
That's true. And noise floor. Talking about noise floor, headphones are usually the loudest thing when I'm like taking an inventory of all the noise floor contributions. An artist's headphones is usually like the number one. Yeah,
they're cranking noise right back into the mic.
Even like street noise, it's going to be hotter than street noise.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing. How often do you go in there and try and guide the artist on their headphone volume?
Often.
What are some reasons to do that?
I think I've got a particular headphone system at the studio that offers a lot of like options. And for some people,
one is that?
It's the Furman.
But it's analog, right?
Yeah, all analog. It just options in terms of some people, players I find more might want an option, but like a more me is just like, I'm going to send the mix on one of the stereo, like a D knob. And really, that's sometimes easier to be like, let's just start here. Because if it's, don't
have them build their own mix until you absolutely have to, kind of thing.
Yes, and some people really want that. Some people really want independent control and want I want this panned this way. And for them, I'm like, okay, I see that you know what you're doing here and that's fun for you to engage in that way. A lot of people don't want to think about it. And I don't want them to get into a pickle where I don't know it sounds bad to them. And what I'm hearing sounds great. And everybody's hearing different things and nobody knows why. That's when it goes sideways.
Isn't that a great expression? Can you picture somebody actually getting into a pickle? So
now I can.
Bizarre, pickle outfit maybe.
Oh yeah. That's
well, it reminds me of what we talked about earlier about the idea of looking for who has a strong opinion in this moment. Let me trust that. So
and as a producer, do I agree with that strong opinion?
Fair.
Or
but then you sort of self-assess. Do I feel like my opinion about this is stronger?
I'm usually in a mode of protecting the artists and their work. Usually their work, and both in tandem. But sometimes an artist is too close to the thing, so that's the only time where I'm like, oh, I need to save this from you for a minute until you regain your senses. But that sort of, I think, is probably my guiding. That's probably what I'm thinking about all the time in the little interactions of the bass player really wants it to go this way, and this person's huffy about they want it to go this way, and that can really have a momentum that can leave people behind. So keeping an eye on controlling the energy of the room is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then hopefully as a producer, you're staying focused on the song and the vocal and the story and the message.
And the track and the
don't
feelings.
Let the other stuff get
lunch schedule.
Derail it too much. Lunch schedule, yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, lunch is a funny one. I when I have an intern in the studio and they're available with the responsibility of doing a lunch run for us, I try to always, I've learned to just, inevitably if I ask the band if they want, is anybody thinking about lunch, they want it, people always say no, because nobody wants to be not tough.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, cool, no worries, but how about we'll just kind of get an order placed early so that it shows up later. And then everybody's like, oh, then that's okay. So
yeah.
I'm not stopping the session right now.
Yeah, I usually present a plan, and you can tweak the plan, but you don't have to take the mental load of being like, do you want to stop? I'm usually like,
do you want to stop?
We have this many pulled up. If this sounds good, let's do one more take, and just kind of already have the plan in place and gauge how many more takes and how that lines up with the schedule, and trying to hit that just right.
It's always the taco take for us in our studio.
Nice.
That was the taco take, and they nail it, and they come in, and we try to always have lunch set out with napkins and stuff and glasses of water and everything.
That's
so that everybody can just sit right down and eat and then go right back to work.
I need to get into that.
It's just helpful because I remember those sessions where you're like, yeah, let's all go out for food. And then 3 hours later, you come back from a sushi place or something.
Yep. It's hard to get back in the groove. Yeah. You're like, what was even this song? I try to take breaks outside though. I'll do sunset o'clock, and everybody has to run out to the deck and look at the sunset.
That's great.
Just get you in nature and get you out of your head. And
we have a picnic table out by the studio. So when the weather's nice, we just always eat out there. Because the control room really does not smell great if everybody just eats in there.
It changes your perspective about just have a little refresh.
Yeah. This podcast is proud to present Recording Studio Rockstars Academy. Are you ready to take your recording, mixing, and mastering to the next level and make your best record ever? Then visit the Academy to find the course that's right for you. Want to record killer drums in your home studio? Then check out Rockstars of Drums to learn how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with a professional Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Or if you're ready to start mastering your own records at home, then check out Rockstars of Mastering, where I walk you through exactly how I master my own records using nothing but plugins. Plus, I take you into a world-class mastering studio, Sterling Sound, to meet with Ryan Smith and hear how he professionally mastered my record, Skadoosh, for release to streaming platforms. That's the music you hear on this podcast, Rockstars. And if mixing is your focus, then check out my free mixing course, Mix Master Bundle, where I show you how to mix using stock and free plugins in Pro Tools. Plus, you get a look at how I recorded everything in my studio and multi-track downloads for you to practice mixing and even upload to your website if you want. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy to get started now. The last part I wanted to ask you about with headphones is vocalist's pitch. Talk about allowing the singer to stay in a place of natural pitch center and not messing with that. What have you learned when it comes to headphones, when it comes to vocals as overdub versus vocals with the guitar in their hand at the same time, stuff like that?
Yeah, it's so individual per person. And some people do sing better with a guitar in their hands. In general, I'm probably thinking about, is the singer relaxed? Do they feel like, is their brain on the lyrics, on the story that they're conveying? Are they in the moment? Are they in the experience and enjoying it? Or are they overthinking it? And that's usually what I'm trying to prioritize. And are
you super attentive to pitch? Are you hyper aware of whether it's in tune or not?
Yeah, that's a very French horn player thing too.
Oh, right.
But I can let it go in service to the story. If I'm like, okay, I need to get you, or I would like the energy of an 8 on this thing. And if you ice skate slip off a couple notes, I could care less, really. I more care about you being able to get to that place that makes me believe the bridge.
Right.
And that's a harder lift sometimes than this one note and this one phrase. I'm like, I bet we'll have it after a playlisting trying to get to the 8 energetically.
That's where the engineering trickery and the magic tricks in the control room and the editing and stuff, really, that's the place for it.
Yeah, it's in the comp. It's not, it usually doesn't have to be over-engineered if we're getting closer and closer to the right performance where they're getting to that place. Then it's like, oh, great, I know I've got 3 more, and I'm curious what else you have, in the tank. Go past it. And finding that edge is sometimes interesting when they're like, I can't sing that high. I'm not that kind of singer or whatever. Yeah. And then you're like, push them. And it's cool to have people find their own capacity, refamiliarize themselves with, you're actually capable of a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for. And doesn't that feel good to be braver coming out,
Yeah, totally. Do you ever suggest vocal warm-ups to clients, or do you ever help them learn new ways to be ready for hitting that high note in a session? Or is it more often that they're showing up with what they got and that's...
Yeah, I usually allow time for it. I don't know that I'm coaching people on how to do it. If I knew more, maybe I would. But I do think it's important and to do it more.
We are coming up on the end here, but let me hit you with this question. Indigo Girls, One Lost Day.
Love them.
Share a story about recording that. And then here's the questions. Well, here's a question that goes with that. What's the difference between recording your friends in the studio and having a legacy artist in the studio? And maybe these are your friends already, but I just think about that those moments where you are working with somebody who may feel to you like this is a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk for about 3 hours about those questions that you just asked.
We'll come back to that. We'll have another episode for it.
Okay.
Too. No, you can hit it. You say what you want to say now.
2 recording things that occurred to me that I remember are talking about like having an idea and then the artist like doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well,
the artist says it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were recording this song of Amy's called Rise of the Black Messiah. And she's playing this like amazing old Gibson Mando. I think it's like I want to say 40s or something, very old. And but plugged direct in. So we've got a very fancy mic in the ISO booth. I think her 87 on vocal, all very hi-fi, but also some like backups. And it wasn't feeling right. And she was like, I want to go and stand right in front of Brandi Blade was playing drums. She was like, I want to be right in front of Brandi and just like, I need to feel that energy. So putting a mandolin right in front of her drum kit is a little challenging, but I was like, that's the gig. That's what we got to do. So we put a 57 on her vocal, DI'd the Mando, and that's what's on the record. One take.
Right on. And the performance ended up as an awesome performance.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's scary.
Do you think that the new movie Barbie coming out has helped?
I hope so. I hope a whole new generation like discover.
Because Indigo Girls was like, wasn't that the song when
huge? Yeah,
across the desert. That was
that's
like
right, Closer to Fine.
Track.
Yeah,
yes.
Totally. They've like made and continue to make awesome music. So talking about like knowing them as a listener and then as friends, for some reason, and I'm thankful for it. It's very in different parts of my person.
Right.
I don't. Emily even said I was hard on them. I think because I'm like, I know how good you are. I Come On Now Social is one of my favorite records. Like Shaming the Sun, love those 90s records, in addition to all the classic ones. And I sort of am wanting to push them and see how, I mean, it's just the dream to have like your favorite ingredients to make something with. Yeah, there's another recording moment with Emily whenever she was doing this particularly like vulnerable song that I think lyrically was really personal. And it just wasn't, she said she was feeling like, grumpy or whatever. And I went in the tracking room with her and was just like, play me the song. And so we took off headphones, so no headphones, and she just played the song, and that's also what was on the record. And it is interesting to like push these people who are so incredible that I've known as a listener for so long. But I feel like there's a responsible kind of part of me that kicks in more, that I'm like, I know how good you are. Come on, let's see how far into that we can take it. Like that creative limit is the biggest drive.
Yeah, pushing a legend. I love it.
And I feel like legacy artists, I feel like you can only say legacy artists sometimes if they're not like still doing things.
Yes, yeah,
I don't know.
As soon as I wrote that down and said it, I was like, I hope that's not a bad word to use. But I just meant like, somebody really, somebody who feels like a really big deal to you in the studio.
Totally. Their first single, I think, came out like the year I was born.
Right on.
I was touring with them one time and said something from stage about like how much I love the song in middle school, and I wasn't even thinking about it. And Emily was like, "Okay," but I was like, "This is ageless. This is the space we're talking about. Is not. It really doesn't have anything to do with it. It's like these songs that we all get to live in different ways."
I think I remember the first time I saw them. Well, the only time I saw them, I think, was in '89, and we were driving down to Daytona Beach for spring break.
Oh yeah, what a picture!
In Atlanta, stayed with friends, and they were playing at some big outdoor festival.
Oh, awesome!
Checked it out. Super fun. Well, let me go to this closing question that I love to ask our guests on the show. We're going to take the Wayback Studio machine, and you get to go back in time and find young Jordan and say and just tap yourself on the shoulder and say, I'm sorry to interrupt you while you're practicing your French horn, but I've come back to give you this one bit of advice. Here's the single most important thing that you need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day. What advice would you like to go back and give yourself if you could?
Chill out and stay curious.
Nice. That's
Emphasis
good.
on chill out.
That's so simple. You could probably remember it too. Chill out and stay curious.
Hopefully. That's right.
I love it. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for hanging with us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's really
so
fun to chat about all this stuff. We're going to have to do it again and get like the 3-hour Indigo Girls.
That's right. Special edition anytime.
Special edition. How can the rock stars find you online? Where would you like them to go check out your work? Call you on that ringing
that's right. Decline.
iPhone watch. And where what if they're ready to make their next cool record?
The studio, MOXE.space, as in outside of time and space, is the website. And then mine's Jordan Hamlin. And I promise one day I'll update them. And then Instagram is probably where things will also live.
It's cool. We'll have links to that in the show notes too, Rockstars, so you can check out the Jordan's Instagram and Moxie's Instagram, where you can see the fun little videos I was talking about. Jordan, thanks for coming over.
Thanks for having me.
Rockstars, thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lij Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our amazing sponsors who help make this episode possible: Lewitt, Grace Design, Adam Audio, Native Instruments, and Isotope. And remember, at isotope.com and nativeinstruments.com, use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plug-in purchase. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, then please check out our sponsors using the links in our show notes below, because it's a great way to help support this show. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio, because they're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars: Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, and Liz Hulitskaya. Thanks so much for listening, Rockstars, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.